Sheffield United have done the league double over Sheffield Wednesday in the Steel City derby for the first time in 19 years. It's after Ryan Brewster's goal gave them a 1-0 win. Got to be said, a tremendous atmosphere, first of all. A fascinating, tight game as well. But Justin, the bragging rights, once again, belong to the red half of Sheffield.
And do you know who's loving it, Ryan? Chris fucking Wilder.
Chrissy Wilder? I would have thought he would be, yes.
This man is ramped up times 1,000. It's been... I don't know what I was expecting. I should have been expecting it, but my goodness, he is... he's gone full Chris Wilder. And, yeah, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'll let the listeners decide. But, yes, bragging rights with Sheffield United. And it's hard to say whether they deserved it. I think they did. It was a tight game. It was a derby game. You played on one of the worst pitches in the Championship I think I've ever seen. It is dogged, to say the very least. But I don't think the manner of the win really matters. It's just about getting 3 points in the derby, getting those bragging rights, and being able to give the middle finger to the blue half of Sheffield.
Yeah, and they definitely were doing that, weren't they? I mean, it's got to be said at this stage, the numbers do not paint a pretty picture for Sheffield Wednesday fans when it comes to the Steel City derby. They've not won in over 13 years. Will be more if Sheffield United go up, of course. But they've not even scored in nearly 8 hours of football against their bitter rivals.
Gee.
Which is ridiculous, really, isn't it? Sheffield United have dominated this fixture, and unfortunately for Wednesday fans, that's going to continue. And I think Wednesday will be looking at this as a missed opportunity to change that, really, because they certainly had some chances, didn't they? Svante Ingilson probably had the best one. Michael Smith had a decent header as well, but unfortunately for them, they came up against a top-class keeper in Michael Cooper, who was in top form. And I think you're probably right, Justin. It probably wasn't the greatest performance from Sheffield United. Their goal had a fair bit of fortune as well, it's got to be pointed out. But who really cares? When it comes to a derby game, they're the ones who have once again got the bragging rights, and they are going to be making sure they make the most of those bragging rights, aren't they? The man of the hour, though, was Ryan Brewster, who scored the only goal. And considering everything he's been through, Justin, what a moment for him.
Yeah, it's a huge moment. Yeah, it wasn't a great goal. It was a tap-in, but you've got to be in that position, haven't you? But I think if, a player like him, I'm desperate for him to do well because of the potential he had. And obviously the injuries that have subsequently stopped him from generating any momentum in his career. But now he's got a moment that will live long in the memory of every fan that was there, both Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. Being able to celebrate the winner in front of the home fans, I think is the stuff of dreams for an away derby win. And as I say, like every single Sheffield United fan will be talking about that moment now for the rest of their days. I still talk about moments from 20 odd years ago with the coffee cup against Nottingham Forest for derby. These things, they live very, very long, and Ryan Brewster's got that now. So yeah, really, really chuffed for him.
Well, considering Derby are in a relegation battle of Forest are competing for the Champions League,
No,
we've got to hold on to those kind of things, haven't we, Justin? I'm still worshipping the poster of Marcus Olsen till this day. But look, as we say, Ryan Brewster has been through a hell of a lot. He obviously joined them for £23 million 4 years ago. But since January 2022, 1,170 days ago, he's been injured for 629 of those days. He has had such a torrid time with injuries, and it's really resulted in the early promise he had in his career somewhat fading. And he's also out of contract in the summer, with reports earlier this week saying that he's going to be leaving Bramall Lane. And while you'd be hard pressed to say he's paid back that 23 million, he'll forever be a Blades favourite now after that goal. That is going to be a moment that lives long in the memory, and he deserves a moment like that as well, because you've got to be happy for him as long as you're not a Wednesday fan, of course. And not only does that goal give Sheffield United bragging rights, it also gives them a huge 3 points, but sees them make ground on Leeds. They're back level on points at the top of the table, which means this could be a pivotal victory in Sheffield United's season.
Yeah, we were alluding to that in the preview episode, weren't we? About it being able to kickstart, a run of form and a run of confidence that can really be pivotal going into the final 8 games of the season. Obviously, this happening just before an international break is probably, I don't know whether you'd say it's ideal timing from a Sheffield United point of view, because you regroup and go again, or it disrupts momentum that they're possibly generating. But I think, I sit on the latter side of the fence, where I think, it's a good chance for them to sit on this win, enjoy it, regroup during the international break, get players back fully fit and refreshed, and go again. Because I think from a mentality point of view, I think Sheffield United are better set for this final 8 games compared to the other teams that are around them chasing the title. It's a big claim, but I think mentally they're in a better place than other teams around them. And I think that's down to Chris Wilder and his ability to just keep things normal, just keeps things very, very normal. Whereas I think with Leeds and Burnley, things are slightly different because of budgets, etc. But that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, huge win against their rivals. But like you said, massive momentum swinger going for the title.
Yeah, well, from a morale standpoint, it's massive, isn't it? I mean, morale's not exactly low at Sheffield United, but this gives them that extra boost. But also, the thing that's got to be pointed out is this was one of Sheffield United's trickiest tests remaining this season. Half of their remaining 8 games are against sides in the bottom 7. They've got Coventry at home after the international break, which is obviously tricky with their form. And then they've got that gigantic clash away at Burnley. Otherwise, Sheffield United will be looking at all their other games and be saying, we should be definitely winning them. So momentum may be swinging their way, Justin. They beat their big rivals this past weekend. Leeds dropping points. Of course, there's Burnley, but they've still got to play them. If I was a Sheffield United fan, I'd be liking the way things are going, Peachy.
Yeah, with Leeds dropping points and Burnley never really convincing going forward. I think, like I said, I think the mentality, that's a really important factor. And obviously, what we do have to really bear in mind is without this points deduction, Sheffield United would be top as well. They would have the edge. They've won more points than Leeds this season, but -2 for obvious, for reasons that don't need to be going into at this point. They would be sitting top, and I think that would almost as well give Sheffield United the edge as well. But yeah, going into this final eight games, I think it's very important. And it's something that Chris Wilder's done very well, because I've only seen murmurings of it a couple of times where he's thinking, okay, well, maybe ego's getting the better of these players. We need to bring them down a peg. And he's done that, and they've responded really well. So yeah, it's a juicy last set of games, juicy business end, if you like. But yeah, this win could be massive.
I mean, that points deduction could be massive, really, couldn't it? Because it's so tight at the top now that it's really annoying that they have got it. Otherwise, they would be in the driving seat, wouldn't they? But we'll talk more about their promotion hopes in a week's time, as well as later on in this show. But oh dear, Justin Peach. Poor Sheffield Wednesday, once again falling victims to their big rivals. They will, of course, be gutted. They're still somewhat in the playoff race, but I think they've got to be considered outsiders at this stage. And I can't help but look at their home form, Justin, and say that's really, really costing them. They've got the second worst home form in the league now. Sheffield United have won as many games at Hillsborough this year as Sheffield Wednesday, which is a pretty damning indictment, isn't it?
Yeah, and considering the cost of going to watch Sheffield Wednesday, value for money isn't quite there, is it? So I really do feel for Wednesday fans. I'm just looking at the form now, and obviously, sitting second bottom in terms of home form and points accrued, just 3 points ahead of Hull, who are absolutely hopeless at home. For example, Plymouth are ahead of Sheffield Wednesday, which just shows you how bad that home form is. I mentioned it earlier, but the pitch is genuinely one of the worst I've seen. It really is poor. I'm not going to say that's the reason why, because so in the previous show, Danny Rule alluded to their what he thought was a poor approach to games from his players going into home games, where they try and overplay it sometimes, and actually they just need to simplify it. He alluded to it back in December. Not seen too much of it since then, but it's something that I would certainly be addressing over the next couple of weeks and talking about it, because it's a problem. It's a problem, and like you pointed out, it's a problem that I think has held them back from reaching a potential this season, because their away form is very, very good. Home form is awful, and that needs to be turned around very, very quickly.
I think we have got to remember, while we've still got an eye on the Still City derby, Wednesday are just simply way off Sheffield United. They've got players who aren't far off Premier League of the Blades, and Wednesday have some players here who they're starting for them, but I'm not sure would be getting into many other Championship sides. I think that's just a matter of fact, really. And it might go some way to explaining why they're so bad at home, but it's still strange. Maybe it is to do with the atmosphere not necessarily being at its best because of the ridiculous ticket prices, Justin. I don't know. It is, however, without a doubt, been one of the things that's probably going to cost them a playoff place this season, amongst other factors, but that's got to be seen as a big factor holding Sheffield Wednesday back, unfortunately, this season. Well, a big win for Sheffield United, but it was made even bigger by the result the day before at Loftus Road, because it's now just 1 win in 4 for Leeds United after they drew 2-2 away at QPR. 3 reviews for QPR. Matt on our Patreon says well earned point. Has says a great performance for Leeds. Jonesy says worrying, leggy, tired. Dom says still on top. Ryan says F early kicks. QPR, we're actually 2-0 up after 30 minutes in this one, so it could have been a lot worse for the Leeds. But the bottom line is Leeds United slipping up once again, Justin.
Slipping up once again, unsurprisingly. It's a lunchtime kickoff, but ignoring that very obvious statistical consistency we're seeing. I do feel like Leeds are just starting really slow with these early kickoffs. They're making errors. They fail to... Yeah, if you look at the goals that they conceded, the Saito goal was comical in that, yes, Brendan Aronson provides a very good assist, and it's a very lovely goal from Saito, but they failed to get the ball clear, and then they concede way too much space without ever engaging any of the QPR players, who then come back with the ball, and then obviously the second goal they're defending again was awful. So yeah, these slow approaches to games and lack of intensity is really, really costing them. Where this is what I talk about with Sheffield United. I think being mentally in a much better position than Leeds, because it feels like the Blades play the pressure off, whereas with Leeds it feels like the pressure's on them all the time.
I'm glad you brought up the lunchtime kickoffs for a change, Justin, because I've been doing my own research
here we go.
Into this.
Right.
So in Leeds' last 8 early kickoffs, they failed to win in 6 of them. Now, you may be asking, what on earth do those 6 games have in common? Well, they were all away from home. The 2 which Leeds have won were at Ellen Road.
Okay.
And we've said for most of this season that Leeds have struggled for consistency away from home. They've only won 8 from 19 away this season. So I think we can put a conclusion on that the actual issue is Leeds struggling with away games. And that also includes the ones which just so happen to kick off early, as well as other times of the day, which is a much valid reason than a game kicking off a couple of hours earlier than usual. I'm glad we managed to put this to bed and find a logical explanation for the whole thing, and we don't ever have to mention it ever again. But going back to the game itself, yeah, I mean, QPR have really struggled recently. I thought this may have been an ideal game for Leeds, really, but QPR were well up for it. What a header from Steve Cook, by the way, for QPR's second. Oh, that was the second best header I've seen this week, Justin, behind Jude Bellingham heading that water bottle. Because otherwise, they really took the game to Leeds, and then Leeds scored 2 by the side of half-time. I thought they may just go on to cruise it from there. But you could argue that QPR came close to scoring after that, so another frustrating one for Leeds. And I tell you what, it's a good thing they did get that win against Millwall in midweek. Otherwise, I'd just be getting my phone ready, Justin, getting Joy Division ready on Spotify.
Yeah, Joy Division are a great band. You should have them in your queued up anyway. You should have them on shuffle. But yeah, you are right. Without the win, it could have been a damaging week. It really could have been. 4 points out of 9 is not the end of the world, but if you're going for the title, you've got to be hitting these 3 games in 7 days periods. Going for the full figure. Yeah, you need 100%, and it's not really been their week. When the loss to Portsmouth was bad. I think that was their worst performance for a long time. But the first half against QPR, I think, is actually probably their worst performance of the season. The reaction we got in the second half was positive, but like I said, that lack of intensity, the mistakes they made, QPR punished them with, but things didn't improve drastically. QPR could have scored again. So, yeah, it's without putting a magnifying glass on it, worrying time. Give me a little bit of stomach ache with Leeds. I'm uncomfortable here, sat in my chair, I need a Pepto-Bismol. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. If I was a Leeds fan, I would be nervous heading into this international break because we have seen signs of them potentially parting in a falling manner, Justin.
We're not saying...
More so than we did actually this time last year, Justin, because if you remember, heading into the final international break of the season, Leeds were cruising. Mm-hmm. They were looking like the team to beat. They weren't showing any signs of weakness, really. Then after that international break, we saw one of the most epic examples yet of Leeds falling apart. So it is interesting that we're seeing more of a wobble heading into this international break than we did in the last one when they had that big collapse. Now, don't get me wrong. I still believe Leeds will win the league as we sit here right now. They're definitely still in the box seat to do just that. But it is interesting comparing it to last season, Justin.
We're not saying Leeds are falling apart, but there are signs. There are signs. I wouldn't argue that they're falling apart. I think it's very easy to jump on and make a mountain out of a molehill of Leeds. But for me, like I said, the stomach ache, they give you a stomach ache feeling. I think if you are to swing a positive, they overturned a 2-0 deficit here after looking pretty awful for periods of this game. So no falling apart just yet, but there are signs. And with Sheffield United generating a lot of momentum, it's difficult. I think there's a real psychological battle between Sheffield United and Leeds because I've not done the research on this because literally thoughts just come to my head, but whenever they played at the same time, we're seeing a lot of one of the teams playing on a Friday, then a Saturday lunchtime, and sometimes it's a Sunday or a Monday. Yeah, we're not seeing them play a 3 p.m. game on a Saturday at the same time because of TV and whatnot. So again, the psychological aspect of these two teams is quite intriguing as well.
Interesting. I do know Leeds have had a very small amount of 3 p.m. kickoffs on a Saturday, which is not surprising at all. Leeds seem to always be on TV. But I mean, there's going to be plenty more psychological battles heading into the final 8 games of the season, isn't there? So, not saying Leeds are falling apart. Leeds fans, don't start sending us DMs just yet. We're just saying if this was a meteorological centre or something like that, we would be saying there's signs of a storm coming or something like that. We're just going to keep an eye on it for now.
That meteor that's gone up from 2% to 3% chance of hitting Earth. Leeds are 2% to a 3% chance of falling apart.
That's not the Meteorological Society, but meteorological's weather.
Yeah, but who predicts the meteors?
Astronomers, I think.
What? That's just ridiculous. Why on earth would they say they're meteorologists, not meteorologists?
No, it's a fair point, Justin. It's a very fair point. Producer Tom, check that. But yeah, I think one final thing we will say on Leeds, and of course we will have more of a discussion about this next week, is Leeds have got a very kind run of games remaining. But again, Leeds, it doesn't really matter.
This was against an underperforming QPR team. This should have been I wouldn't say walk in the park, but this should have been a game where Leeds didn't look as bad as they did.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Justin. A quick word on QPR then, because it does seem like their season is nearing an early end. They are only 7 points clear of the relegation zone, so could do with just shutting that off in their next few games. But would you say this point against Leeds is one in the eye for the minority of QPR fans who have been saying Cifuentes out recently?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's very unfair. I think you've got to look at recent history with QPR, and it could be Gareth Ainsworth is all I'll say. For Marty Cifuentes, I think he's doing a good job. I wouldn't say he's overachieving. Maybe I would actually, because how good is his QPR team? The budget's not the biggest, and the squad isn't full of quality. It's as simple as that. So maybe he's overachieving, or maybe he's on par where QPR should be. But nonetheless, I still think he's doing a good job. And as I say, it could be Gareth Ainsworth worse. So for me, keep him until he gets poached. And this is a good result. It's disappointing that they dropped a 2-0 lead, but it's against Leeds with a very talented group of players. So I hope it does quieten down the QPR out.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Ainsworth there, Justin. He's now managing the side bottom of League One.
Yes.
So
there you go. Could be worse.
It's a great reminder for QPR fans of how much Cifuentes has changed their fortunes. And look, the Marty Party is a good manager. I think he's been dealt a tough hand this season with injuries and not getting a huge amount of backing, and he's working with what he's got, and he's doing a good job. And the bottom line is the grass isn't always greener. That's what I would say to any QPR fan who thinks getting in someone else would be a good idea right now. Well, one team who shouldn't be forgotten in this title race is Burnley, who have set a new record for the number of clean sheets in a championship season after a 2-0 win at Swansea. 27 they've now got this season, and they've done it with 8 games to go. Before we get onto the game, Justin, that is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's bonkers. It's bonkers. If they don't win promotion, at least they can take that accolade home. But it's seriously impressive. It really is. I'm not a fan of Parker Ball. I think that's been made apparent this season. I don't think it's exciting enough or interesting enough. But if clean sheets are your thing, then you should be frothing at the mouth for Parker Ball. And I actually think, I wouldn't say he's proved a lot of doubters wrong. He's actually probably proved them right. But this is an astonishing feat, really. The Championship's a very hard league, really, really hard league. So to get this many clean sheets with this many games to go, I think is incredible. Yeah.
They may not, whether they get promoted or not is another thing. But if they don't, most clean sheets in a championship season, you will never sing that, But we've always said that defensive record is ridiculous, isn't it? More clean sheets than a hotel, mate. And I don't think we'll see anything like these numbers ever again with Burnley, unless there is somehow another step in the evolution of Scott Parker producing the dullest football known to mankind. Then I think that record may be safe for quite some time. I will say, though, for me, heading into this, I always thought Swansea felt like the ideal opponent for Burnley, because they're a side who are open, and we've seen that on plenty of occasions. Burnley know how to exploit that, and that's exactly what they did here, Justin.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think it just brings about the argument that Burnley are better without the ball. I think defensively they sit in a good shape, hence their record. But the way they break forward, I think, is really, really impressive as well. And that's something that I think I would praise Scott Parker for, because if you get these stubborn teams who want to play a certain way, as Swansea do, and that's their thing, fair enough. A team like Burnley, who have shown time and time again, will sit there and exploit those gaps. They will get to the byline, they will get the balls in. And I've said this since the Luton and Cardiff wins back at the start of the season. If Scott Parker embraces this type of football a little bit more often, then I think he will get more wins. Maybe not as many clean sheets, but that being said, probably would. But they'll get more wins and look more exciting, because I thought they looked really, really positive against Swansea despite sacrificing possession. You are right. I think Swansea are the ideal opponent for Burnley, but I think it's a lesson for what Burnley could achieve if more teams were stubborn in their approach, if you like.
Yeah, I don't really know what Swansea's game plan was here, but whatever it is, they didn't execute it very well at all. You've got to be sacrificing a bit of your attacking intent to get anything against this Burnley team, and they did not do that. And they were made to pay for it, because they were clearly outdone here. And that's really why Burnley are 25 games unbeaten now, which is a ridiculous run, isn't it? If they go unbeaten until the end of the season, they'll actually match the championship record for the most games or the longest unbeaten run as well, which is pretty impressive as well. That's another record Burnley can equal / break this season. But I always think with Burnley, if you try to play for a draw against them, you're probably going to get a draw, because they've shown on plenty of times this season that they don't know what to do if a team does that against them. If you try to win against them, you're probably going to lose. That's just what you're dealing with this Burnley team. It's a bit strange, but look, the most important thing is Scott Parker's side have made ground on Leeds. They're just 2 points off the top. They've actually won 6 of their last 8 in the league, which has perhaps gone under the radar, but got to be said, they're looking well placed heading into this business end of the season, Justin.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it? This is what we wanted. This is what we all asked for. This is what we pay our money for. No one pays us any money, but yeah, you get the point. We wanted a Leeds wobble. We got it, and it's opened everything up. At one point, I don't know, a stat provider said that Leeds had a probability of a 98% chance of winning the league. They don't have that now. That's dropped because obviously the chance of them bottling it has increased, obviously. But all this has done is just it's just ramp everything up. It's opened up the race as well. It's made it interesting for everybody. So I think the team who handles the pressure will be interesting, and I think Sheffield United and Chris Wilder have come across better so far in handling it, but only marginally. Yeah, Burnley. Going back to them, with their clean sheets and defensive record, they've made up ground. But can they win more than they draw? That's the question. And this is why I think Sheffield United might be better placed at the moment.
They might be better placed than Burnley, or Leeds better placed than Burnley because of the way things are going for them. Who knows? Who knows, Justin? It's going to be a fascinating business end of the season. Burnley's recent form would say that maybe they are being a bit underestimated in this race. We'll wait and see. Justin, let's take a quick break. But before that, it's time for us to look back on how our preview show picks done in the previous show, brought to you by SBK, because our bet builder was on the Steel City derby and a £10 stake was due to return £100. We had Sheffield United to win. Woohoo! We had under 3.5 goals. Woohoo! Under 3.5 shots on target for Sheffield Wednesday. They only had 3. So woohoo! And finally, under 4.5 cards. There were 6. Dough. Mm-hmm. Ryan's card pick of the week. Usually so reliable, but it let us down in this one. On to our multiple now, where a £10 stake was due to return £470. Bloody hell. We had Sheffield United to win. Yes. We had Derby to win. Yes. We had Bristol City to win. Yes. And we had Sunderland to win. Sigh. Wow. So close to £470, Justin. I mean, well, we weren't that close because Coventry battered them. But one result away from 470 quid.
The Frank Lampard effect. That's what it does. That's what it does. Batters you into submission. There you go.
Yeah, I was gutted when I realised
that Sunderland were not going to call that back. Yeah, about 20 minutes in.
Yeah, pretty much, absolutely right. But we'll be back with a new round of picks in the next preview show, brought to you by SBK. Justin, let's have a quick break. After that, we'll discuss the relegation battle. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast, and it's now time for us to reveal the winner of our latest edition of Jameson's Weekend Hero. Every single week, we ask you to nominate a fellow Championship fan that you believe deserves recognition. Now, it could be someone who drove you to a recent away day. It could be a friend or a relative who got you into supporting your club in the first place. Whatever it is, we want to find out. So to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero from this weekend, send us a voice note right now on WhatsApp explaining your nomination. The number is in the show notes. And of course, if we pick you, you'll win a bottle of Jameson to share with your winner. Now on to this weekend hero, who is from Tom, who wanted to nominate Ed, who's a Spurs fan. Well, all will become clear.
Hi guys, I'd like to nominate my friend Ed Palmer for the weekend hero. Reason being is that he is this weekend completing the 92 of all the stadiums in the UK, and it's going to be up at Notts County this weekend for a big game. He's very kindly treating myself and a couple of other mates to the hospitality up there as a way of celebrating it, and I think that this would be a fantastic way to conclude this amazing journey around the UK of all the proper football stadiums. A proper football fan, as we might all agree, and I think this would be a fantastic way for him to conclude it with being nominated for the weekend hero.
I completely agree, Tom. The 92, what an achievement, Justin.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I'm not surprised given how poor Spurs are. It's no surprise to see him want to get out of North London, but yeah, it's an incredible achievement. I think it's for someone to commit that much travelling and time is really really impressive. Really, really impressive.
I'm very surprised that the last one he's gone to is Notts County. You'd have thought right in the Midlands it would be one of the first ones you go to, but I don't know what Ed's thinking was behind that. How many of the 92 have you done, Justin?
I reckon about 40 or 50. I did a lot of away trips with my dad. My dad would put in a serious number. I wouldn't be surprised to say that he's done about 75 without realising.
Yeah. Your dad is a renowned traveller, isn't he? I think I have done. I mean, I think I'm 20s or 30s kind of area.
That's poor.
Yeah. Maybe 40s, actually. I did write them down at one point, but I haven't touched that list in a long time. But I think I've been to the vast majority of championship grounds.
I think I've been to them all. I think I've actually been to them
Oxford?
all. I've never, no. Okay, Oxford,
Okay,
Ashton Gate. I've never been to Bristol City or Oxford.
You haven't been to Bristol City?
No. I ran
Really?
around Ashton Gate because I was working in Bristol at the time. I ran around it, but I've never been.
Oh, right.
I've never been. You not go to random cities if you ever work in a random city. Would you ever run to the football ground? I would. I always do it.
You've seen my gut.
Okay, sorry. That's a good point. But yeah, I think it's literally just Ashton Gate in the Kassam. I've never been to.
Okay. Fair enough. That is impressive. I tell you what, 50 is a good crack in itself, so fair play to you for that. But yeah, I mean, Ed, to get back onto the task at hand here, that is one hell of an achievement, dear boy. And that's why we are now going to raise a glass of Jameson Ginger and Lime to say congratulations to you and congratulations for becoming this weekend's Jameson Weekend Hero. And just now going to have a swig in honour of your great accomplishment. Delicious. I tell you what, just now I had a few of them over Cheltenham Week and it was fantastic. And to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero, send us a voice note right now on WhatsApp. Just needs to be about a minute long. The number is in the show notes and you could be our next winner. You must be over 18 to enter, UK only, and T's and C's apply. Let's get back on to some of the weekend's action then, JP, and we'll have a look at the relegation battle, shall we? And we'll kick things off with a big relegation 6-pointer. Derby County, they won 3-2 at Plymouth thanks to an 88th minute winner from Marcus Harness. 3-word reviews for Derby. Chris says Super Marcus Harness. For Plymouth, Matt on our Patreon says League One beckons. 3 wins in a row for the Rams. Just their second away win of the season, and what a time to get it.
Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? It was amazing. I mean, just the manner of the win. It was a tight game. It was a really tight game. They went 2-0 up, got pegged back, and pretty much had to sit and wait for their moment in the second half because Plymouth dominated possession and play. It was mostly Plymouth. So to hold the nerve and, as I say, get that win in very dramatic circumstances is an incredible feeling for the fans that travelled down there and everyone who was engaged with it at home. So, yeah, it's a strange game, a really strange game, but yeah, won the Derby edge because I think they had the quality. That being said, everything was pretty even other than that.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy game, actually, wasn't it? You had Derby taking the 2-goal lead again, the third time in a row they've done that, including with a lovely volley by young Harrison Armstrong on loan from Everton, but that was superb. But then Plymouth managed to get it back level, having also scored a great goal themselves through Mustafa Bundu from an incredible free kick. And then for most of the second half, Derby didn't offer a whole lot. It was starting to look as if both sides would be settling for a point. Then all of a sudden, ball gets played into Marcus Harness to tap home late on, and the scenes in the Derby end were tremendous. The video which Derby have put out from basically inside the limbs was absolutely superb. That is some top quality club content right there, because this is a huge, huge victory. And the Derby fans knew it, Justin. Just over a week ago, there weren't many positives to hold on to for supporters. I don't think a single Derby fan expected a 9-point week to follow.
Yeah, my dad was telling me that as he got out of the car on the way to the Blackburn game last weekend, he was questioning where the goals were going to come from. Fast forward 7 days, Derby have taken a 2-0 lead twice. They scored 3 goals in a game as well. It's worth pointing that out. Marcus Harness has turned into prime Kaka. I'm trying to think of number 10, prime Matai Vizra. Why not? Prime Matai Vizra. And yeah, it's
Never
just a huge, and it's just been a huge, huge turnaround. And I think there's a lot of good going on. There's still a lot of room to grow and a lot of room they do need to develop. But, I think mentally the impact John Eustace had is great. But I think just the standard of coaching, you can tell, has gone up. The way they create chances is better. The attention to detail is impressive. I think they've always been good from set pieces, but you just got to look at the the goals that they scored in the first half were from long throws. And that's down to them employing a set-piece consultant called Stuart Reid recently. These things aren't by accident. This is good quality coaching, and a manager with a fresh pair of eyes who's got and now turning things around tactically as well. So, John Eustace deserves a lot of praise, but the players as well for taking everything on board.
Well, it's ridiculous, really, that Derby have won 3 in a row and are still in the bottom 3. Yeah. I think that says a lot about how far adrift they were, but also how other sides aren't accepting relegation either, because they've picked up some wins themselves. Those sides outside the bottom 3 now be sweating, though, won't they, because of Derby's upturn in form. And this is a remarkable turnaround. John Eustace has won more games this past week with Derby than Paul Warne managed in his final 3 months in charge. It's crazy, isn't it? But it took a bit of time for Eustace to get these players playing football again, but that's what they're doing now. I think a big reason for that has been the introduction to the side of young Harrison Armstrong at just 18 years old. He looks a fantastic player on loan from Everton. Marcus Harness has been flourishing in that sort of free role that he's got. And while they're not exactly Real Madrid going forwards at the moment, they're not panicking in the final third.
Stoke from 2009.
Stoke from 2009 may also be applicable here. But look, they're not panicking the final third like they were before and just launching in aimless crosses constantly like they were during under Paul Warne. So they've got confidence again. And right now, you'd say they're a good bet to stay up because they've got more momentum than any other team in the bottom half.
Yeah, but how quickly can that momentum be halted? Derby are on a great run of form, but prior to that, lost 3 games in a row. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. This is speaking as a championship expert. Things change very, very quickly in this league. But what you've got to, they've given themselves a chance, haven't they? They've really propelled themselves forward. And you are right. They have developed momentum. And like I said, I think the good noises we're seeing or hearing in terms of some of the coaching and the attention to detail going into things, all it does is just to highlight the frustration of not sacking Paul Warne sooner, because I don't think Derby would be anywhere near the bottom 3 if that was the case. But look, that's by the by. I think they are in a great place right now, but we saw with Oxford, they want an incredible beating run under Gary Rowett, then a bad run. You're never too far away when you're down there from a bad run of form. So not getting too ahead of things at the moment for Derby.
Just need to be above that dotted line, mate. That's all Derby fans care about at this stage of the season. It's not looking so good for Plymouth Argyle right now, though, is it? We did say this time last week that we could probably mark Plymouth as all but down if they failed to win either of their 2 games this past week. Now, they, of course, did win against Portsmouth on Wednesday, but what we weren't expecting when we made that initial statement was every other team in the bottom 7 to also pick up at least 1 win this week. So it's almost negated that victory. And while it's still important, obviously, because otherwise they'd be even further adrift, it is still a 6-point gap with 8 games to go. And it's got to be said, it's looking pretty bleak after this result, Justin.
It is, unfortunately. I think the Portsmouth win was a huge... it wasn't hugely impressive because they were up against it. And Portsmouth really should have picked something up out of that game. But confidence-wise and morale-wise, it picks you up. But I think this is just a reminder of how poor a side this Plymouth team is, with the greatest respect. I think the manner of the way they conceded the goals, I do praise Derby for adopting a long throw, but I think conceding from them is criminal. I really, really do, because all it is chaos, and it depends how you deal with that chaos. Unfortunately, Plymouth didn't, which is weird because they've done a pretty good job of dealing with those situations at times since Mulic came in. But they got themselves back into the game and they didn't seize on their dominance in that second half, which points to that lack of quality. And then unfortunately, they were done by Derby opening up for probably the first time in the second half period. So yeah, there's a lack of quality there, and I think belief does drop off in a home game as well. It's not good.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to look at it like this. They're 6 points from safety and they've got 8 games to go, but they've only won 4 points in their previous 7 games. So that's not promising. It's even less so when you look at their remaining fixtures, because we've talked a lot about how hopeless they are away from home this season. Maybe that'll change after they got their second away win in midweek, but I doubt it. So Plymouth are probably relying on their home games. Who are their remaining home games against, you say, Justin? Well, they've got Norwich. Okay, maybe something there. They've also got Sheffield United, Coventry, and Leeds. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a valiant effort, guys. Yeah, I can't see it at this stage. If we're talking about getting to Safety Island, then I think Miran Muslic is sort of standing at the front of the boat, saluting while Ryan Hardy, Nikola Katic and Ballymumba are bravely playing the violin as the ship goes down. That's how I would sum up Plymouth's chances, Justin.
Bit of pride. All that tells me is there's a bit of pride there, and that's what Plymouth need at the moment. It is worth pointing out when the backs are up against the wall and the odds are really against them, as we've seen in the FA Cup run, they can pull something out of the hat that is a rabbit. I don't know why I said it like that, but you get the point. They can really, really do something miraculous. So that's what they're relying on. They're relying on something miraculous to happen in these games. They don't believe in miracles because it's the Championship, and Championship is very illogical. But Plymouth have got to go against that. They've got to go against the grain of all things universe here and do this, which is a very difficult thing to do.
We've got to put out plenty of rabbits from hats at this stage, haven't they? Cardiff won for just the second time in 9 league games with a 2-1 victory away at Blackburn. 3-road review for Cardiff. Matty says, massive Cardiff win. For Blackburn, James says, downward spiral underway. Kaz says, absolute shit show. Michael says, playoffs gone. Dave on our Patreon says, charity case Rovers, in reference to Blackburn giving away a lot of points to the teams down at the bottom of the table. We were saying in midweek how Cardiff were looking the most vulnerable in the relegation fight with so many teams around them winning, Justin, and that just makes this result so much more massive for Omar Reese's boys.
It does. I think it's a good time to play Blackburn because they are in a moment where they have no idea where they're going. But more on that in a moment. So as I say, I think it's a good time to play Blackburn, and the charity case thing is probably quite true, because I don't think Cardiff were brilliant here. They were better than Blackburn, though, and that's all they needed to be. I think there were a couple of moments in this game that were quite pivotal. Getting the early goal, thought would have propelled Cardiff forward. It didn't quite have that impact, but getting that win in the 73rd minute from Mate was important. But there was a change tactically to a 4-2-3-1 in the second half, which I think allowed them to put a lot more pressure on Blackburn, which did help them. But I think the interesting thing is this win probably keeps Omar Reitzer in a job at a time when Cardiff probably could have changed things. That being said, would they have changed it? Even if they did sack Omar Reitzer, would they have just got another coach from within the ranks is another question. But yeah, it's a huge win. Not overly impressive, but 3 points is 3 points, and teams down there need it.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to see Yaku Mate scoring the winner here. He's someone I quite often forget exists, but fair play to him. But yeah, it was a pretty even game, this one, really. Either side could have won it, really, but Cardiff will be delighted, particularly because it's only their second away win from home this season, so it's a big boost for them, big boost for Omar Reitzer for all the reasons you just mentioned there, Justin, and also because they would have gone into the bottom 3 if they didn't win after Derby's victory, and then it would have really been looking all doom and gloom for them with just one win in 9, but that's not the case, so they've got a bit of optimism heading into this international break, which is certainly going to be valuable for Cardiff fans over the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure optimism is the same word I would use for the mood at Blackburn Rovers, though, Justin, because they were in the top 6 when Valérien Ismaël took over, but just 1 point from his 4 games in charge so far has left Rovers fans far from impressed. I even saw a video compilation from someone of John Eustace and all the good times they had under him, which is quite a dramatic turn after waving inflatable snakes in front of him last week. But there you go. Justin, look, you were a big fan of the Ismaël appointment when it was made. So with that being said, what would be your message to frustrated Blackburn fans so far?
Looking into the numbers a little bit more, they've had a massive share of possession in their last 3 games, and they've looked really poor in each of them. Ishmael gets the best out of his teams when they're fast, when they're in fast direct transitions, which we've not seen yet at all. Tyrese Dolan and Todd Cantwell are too often not close enough to Maktar Gay. Frustrates me. They're also too tight and too narrow at times, and they don't really utilise the width of the pitch. We saw it against Stoke quite extensively, actually, which was really, really, really annoying. It's hard to say whether Valérien Ismaël will come good. He's an appointment on paper I really, really like, but I think it depends what teams he comes up against. But if they sacrifice the ball, I think that's where you start to see the positives. There was a bit of that against Norwich in his opening game. But let's see what happens over the next 2 weeks of this international break, because that's where you can really start to judge a manager when he gets more time on the training ground. But as I say, I think possession-wise has been the big problem, because they look really poor in it. And they're not really playing to Ishmael's strengths yet so far.
I think we have got to remember this squad is doing well to be in the top 10 anyway.
That's a good point.
Let alone the playoffs. And when you've got a manager leaving halfway through the season, with part of the reason being him thinking the squad's not good enough, then there needs to be a bit of perspective. That's what I would say, Justin. I think it's a bit unfair to be criticising Ishmael this soon into his reign. Plus, he's been parachuted into a very strange situation where he's having to keep a side in the top 6, which I can't recall many managers who have come into a team halfway through the season with the aim being to do that. So, yeah, it's a very strange situation for him, and I don't think he should be judged too much if he does fail to keep Blackburn in the playoffs. That's what I would say. Oxford United got their first win in 10 by beating Watford 1-0. Like Cardiff, another team who were looking very nervously over their shoulder. So what a big relief for them heading into this international break.
Yeah, and obviously a late goal as well. So I think the big sort of relief that I imagine everyone surrounding Oxford would have breathed at that point was massive. Siriki Dembele getting his first goal as well, I think is quite big, because I think he can play a huge role in the next few games. Oxford had a lot of injuries, Tom Bradshaw being one of them. So I think quality wise and being able to rotate that team over the last few weeks in this winless run that they've had has been a problem for Gary Rowett. So, players coming back will be important over the next couple of weeks, but it is a huge win. It's against a team who largely, on the share of chances in this game, probably could have edged it, but didn't have the quality, and Oxford punished them. So yeah, it's a huge 3 points, because at one point Oxford did look like they were dropping very, very quickly, but this parachutes them down just above the relegation fight, if you like.
Well, it would have been just 1 point above the bottom 3 if they lost here, which shows how desperately needed this result was. And I don't think it was an amazing performance. Watford had many more sights of goal than Oxford did, and really should have taken advantage of one of their chances, but didn't, and it's ended up costing them. And Oxford will be delighted. You did mention Siriki Dembele there. Justin. Gary Rowett admitted he was about to take him off before he got the late winner, so it's a good thing he didn't. But yeah, echoing what you were just saying, Justin, I was getting quite worried about Oxford. They just seem to be sleepwalking towards the bottom 3, and that might still be the case with 8 games to go, but just halting that winless run is obviously a good start to stopping it, isn't it?
Yeah, again, I think you need a lot of perspective with this Oxford team, because I think Gary Rowett came into this side and things really escalated very quickly, positively, probably more so than anybody expected, even Gary Rowett, with the winning run that they had, or the unbeaten run that they had when he came in. But I think the positive is they don't look awful. They've never looked awful all season, I don't think. There's only been a handful of periods, which is in disagreement with you and things that you've said in the past. But I think we've seen a lot of teams down fighting that have had really good stretches of form where they've looked very convincing. They're going to pull away, and then all of a sudden they drop like a stone. Oxford are another one, and probably the best summary of that is them looking unreal under Gary Rowett at one point, and then bereft of confidence in the next. So all that does, I think, is just push the narrative of I have no idea who's going down at the moment, other than Plymouth.
Yeah, other than Plymouth, of course. Well, this may help you give some sort of judgment on that, Justin, because in the Alex Neil derby, a 94th minute penalty from Mihajlo Ivanovic saw Millwall get a late 1-0 win at home to Stoke. 3 reviews for Millwall. Al says finally a penalty. For Stoke, Andy says never a penalty. Wayne says last minute robbery. Yeah, penalty was given for a foul by Ben Wilmot on Josh Coburn. The big question is, Justin, was it a penalty?
Ooh, I think it's really good centre forward play from Josh Coburn. I will praise him for it. I think it's quality. I love that. There's a moment earlier on in the game where Ben Wilmot does exactly the same thing to Josh Coburn, which I think maybe sways the ref's mind, because Ben Wilmot, I think he's too tight to Coburn, and you're just looking for contact at this point. That being said, that does contradict the notion of you're allowed contact in the box. We do play a physical contact sport. It's fine. So I think it's a soft penalty, but I'm not surprised it's been given, if that makes sense.
I am surprised it's been given, and I think it's a soft penalty, because I think to be giving a penalty in the 94th minute, it needs to be an absolute stonewaller. And every time I've watched it, I think to myself, they're both grappling with each other. So it's a very harsh penalty for me. And as you say, football is a contact sport. Players are grappling with each other at every set piece, aren't they? So I don't think anything out of the ordinary has happened there to warrant a penalty, in my view. But the big unfortunate thing for Stoke is it's a decision which is a big blow to their survival chances, because that win in midweek was huge for them. But they've been wound back in straight away, Justin, after just a matter of days.
Yeah, and I think the manner in which they lost this as well, which will be the more frustrating thing for Mark Robbins. I mean, he was livid at the end talking about the penalty decision. He's really, really up for it, actually, having a conversation over it. But they missed good chances. I think Walter Berger had a really good chance where he's through 1-on-1 and he just kicks it at the goalkeeper. So there's a lack of confidence there as well. There were good moments from Stoke, but watching this, I never thought they were going to really, really hurt Millwall. And I think all that does is just amplify the fact that what we've been saying over the past few weeks is Stoke are relying heavily on teams in the bottom three not getting out of the bottom three, because they cannot play their way out of this. They're in a real sticky situation, because this is a game they shouldn't have lost. They did. And the reason why they lost it isn't because they gave away a penalty, or, should it not have been a penalty? It's because they didn't take their chances. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with anything you say there. And we'll finish off the show by diverting away from the relegation battle to go to a potential playoff clash in a couple of months' time, because Coventry got back to winning ways with a 3-0 win against Sunderland. Haji Wright scoring a hat-trick. 3-word reviews for Coventry. BJ says Frank Lampard effect. Pete says Haji Wright show. Sean says Coventry were fortunate. Yes, thank you, Sean. For Sunderland, Sir Spud on our Patreon says worst performance yet. Dan on our Patreon says season sizzling out. Another Dan on our Patreon says won't make playoffs. Yeah, after saying recently how Coventry have been fortunate, which they have been, I may have received a few messages off the back of this game along the lines of, were they fortunate here? And you know what? That's absolutely fair, because they were brilliant, weren't they, Justin? Sunderland were shocking. Possibly the worst performance I've seen from them this season, actually. But Coventry were also very good here.
Yeah, everything clicked. Everything clicked. And that's the sort of thing you're looking for in terms of reaction to a poor defeat in midweek. It's exactly what's needed. And I think it's arguably their best performance of the season, Coventry. Some fans might disagree, but I think when you're beating a team who have been competing for the title at various points this season and are very comfortable in that top 6 position, and you beat them as comfortably as you do and as easily as you do, yeah, it's a very, very good performance. I thought the game was managed brilliantly. Defensive shape was spot on. I know Haji Wright will get the plaudits, rightfully so, because his hat-trick goal was specifically brilliant. Lovely chip. But Jamie Allen was brilliant in this game. So I think he really, really deserves a lot of plaudits as well. But you can't really point the finger at any other Coventry player, because they were near perfect here.
Yeah, as I was alluding to, I can't believe how bad Sunderland were in this one. And I think that has played a significant role in this result. If automatic promotion wasn't over before for them, it certainly is now. But it certainly helps Coventry when they've got the returning stallion, that is Haji Wright, scoring his hat-trick here in just his second start since early November, by the way, Justin. And you were just saying there, Haji Wright's going to get all the plaudits. We're going to be amongst them, Justin. What a player he is.
I love him. I do. I really, really do. Since Mark Robbins moved into the left last season, he really came on. I think the most astonishing thing here is he's in double figures for the season. He's got 10 goals, despite missing, I think, 19 games in 3 months, which is just...
Only started 10 games this season.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Ridiculous.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. But it just highlights how clinical he is, but how good he is at getting into goal scoring positions. And, he's a player that Frank Lampard hasn't really had a lot of time to work with because of these injuries. And what we've seen under Frank Lampard at Coventry is a lot of individuals really improve. Ephraim Mason-Clark, Bobby Thomas, Brandon Thomas-Asante. Just think what he can do with Haji Wright based on the evidence we've seen so far. So really excited to see what he can do if he stays fit for the final 8 games of the season. He could be the difference maker in Coventry finish in the top 6. That's massive because Ellis Sims frustrates the hell out of me, and they've not really had a convincing goal scorer yet this season. And there's Haji Wright showing up, doing what he does.
Doing what he does, and he could even play a huge role in the playoffs themselves, couldn't he? I will point out to any Coventry fans wanting Ryan Dilks tears right now, I've always said Coventry squad is one of the strongest in the league, and Haji Wright is one of the best in that team. And it's a shame, really, that he has been out injured for so long. Otherwise, we'd possibly be talking about this season's top goal scorer.
Mark Robin's still being a job.
You mentioned there. Well, let's not get carried away. But look, him being back is a big timely boost for Coventry and a very important part of their season it is as well. So he's going to play a big role because he's one of the best all-round forwards in the division and will undoubtedly play a big role in the remainder of their season. Let's do the polls, Justin. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. First question I put out to the listeners is this: who's going up automatically? Burnley Leeds, Burnley Sheffield United, Leeds Sheffield United. Hold your thoughts, Justin. We're talking about this next weekend, so you can save your theories for then. Sunderland, there you go. 50% of people said Leeds Sheffield United. 31% said Burnley Leeds. 19% said Burnley Sheffield United. I thought more people might go for Burnley Sheffield United. Interesting. Who's the bigger club, Sheffield United or Sheffield Wednesday, Justin?
Fuck off, I'm not answering that.
You've learnt well over the years. 57% of people said Sheffield Wednesday. 43% said Sheffield United. And finally, who's the best UK comedian? James Acaster, Jimmy Carr, Peter Kay or Lee Mack?
I don't care.
Fair enough.
I don't know. This is probably the first time I've not answered any of these polls, but genuinely, like, comedians blow hot and cold for me. I really struggle to have an opinion. I like James Acaster. He is funny, but at the same time, he can be really annoying. So I don't know.
We had a golden age, didn't we, with Mock the Week back in the 2000s.
Yeah, we did.
That was a proper golden era when it came to UK comedians. I like Lee Mack. I think he's very funny. And he's very dry as well, which is my kind of humour, Justin. 43% of people said Peter Kay. For what? Because he talks about garlic bread all the time. Ridiculous. 24% of people said Jimmy Carr. 19% said Lee Mack. 14% said James Acaster. So those are the polls. And this has been the Second Tier Podcast. But if you are a Patreon subscriber, don't go anywhere. We've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time. We'll be talking about a bad week for Portsmouth, a big missed opportunity for Luton, and the second biggest underachievers of the season, ? If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Zamora Time in every single weekend show. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. Otherwise, we've got a breather now until the business end of the season. We'll be back again on Thursday for a news roundup of everything cracking off across the Championship, and then we'll make our predictions for how the season is going to end next Sunday. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.